Ramana Maharshi quote, meditation is the word we use at first to describe our natural state. Put an end to, practices, or, maybe see through the practices that I'd used in the past as practices, as trying to attain something. But it's a very true statement, is it? I mean, really, when we talk about meditation now, it's really like just taking a pause, like hitting a pause on a tape recorder or a CD player, or on your phone for younger people, and being with that sense of being rather than doing. This sensed separate person, this personhood that's seems seemingly ever vigilant and ever on the go, ever trying to get somewhere. It doesn't know where it's going. It's just constantly reanimating itself and responding and fundamentally reacting to whatever arises. So the thought and the feeling and the sense and the perception of all sensory input and the internal relationship to what's coming at us as a sensed individual person, trying to figure it all out is kind of like hyper-vigilant, isn't it? And it's constantly reacting to what's going on outside of itself in order to regain that stance that it had taken before anything was seemingly or apparently happening. So to put a pause on that for a bit is another way of saying meditation, of course, and to simply look up and go and take notice of. Nature's a really good vehicle, isn't it, for bringing us to the present and bringing us to things that matter. It's such a paradox, isn't it, that the things that truly matter and enrich the moment, that create the cosmic art of living experience, and that could even be a majestic building. It's still a piece of art, isn't it? Everything is art, really. But taking a moment, a pause, to hear those birds go past, to hear distant traffic even, to notice the majesty of a tree, or we all know the experience of going to the sea, don't we? And you get to the sea and it's just like, there's nothing you can say about it. It's just like, it's so prosaic and just there, isn't it? But that sense of power, not really coming out of it. The sea is just as benign as everything else. It's got no meaning in and of itself, but the meaning we apply to it is like, all we can say about that meaning is like, yes, it's just, whew, because it speaks to that within us there is presence, that there is that sense of beingness. The sea is being the sea, isn't it? Movements of it, the waves that are the movements of it are, they speak to us, that we are the sea, and the waves are the movements of thinking, feeling, sensing, and perceiving. So the projection that we apply onto it is mirrored back to us. We are light bearers shining out onto that. So these pauses are just beautiful, and the more we develop a relationship with that, by being interested in it, if we catch the spark of it, if it becomes our inspiration to explore our true nature, and exploring our true nature is, perhaps encountering, I don't know, this or any other way of describing reality, really, as something that is sacred and divine, as well as human and humane, in amidst so much that is inhuman and inhumane. Catching that divine spark and our own sense of divinity, if that catches us, because our plans and programs for where happiness might be found in objects and things finally collapse, or temporarily collapse even, if the veil parts for a moment, and it only needs part for a moment, it doesn't need to stay open, as we spontaneously move around, then we grow out of that. We become inspired. To be in spirit is to be inspired. So as that veil parts and we catch a glimmer of the way things really are, capital R, capital A, and then we invest in that ever-present relationship with that. the past, the future, the wounds, the concerns, all of those do still arise, of course, but we slowly embody the idea and the experience that they're not arising to anyone, they're just arising. The trap is that, we for a while we still believe they're arising to us, and it is a belief. We apply to belief that these difficulties are mine. That's not to undermine the fact that they are real, so we don't spiritually bypass what arises, but we acknowledge the arising and we name it for what it is. If you read Christ as the mystic, as the Zen master, if you read scriptures in a non-dual way, which is a wonderful thing to do. If you see this enlightened man teaching non-duality, which there's stuff out there to look at it in that way, it just takes on a whole new meaning, and in fact makes a lot more sense, to be honest. Then you see this guy correctly naming the moment as he encounters people. I think there's a story, isn't there, where he's often asked by the Pharisees and the Sadducees to challenge people. I think a prostitute's brought to him, and they're constantly trying to catch him out. But actually what he does is he always re-navigates the expression of the moment that people are bringing to him, because they're bringing to him a moralistic view, a lawful view, a containered view, a contracted view, and a moral view of situations and people and individuals in an effort to catch him out from a moralistic standpoint. But of course, he's coming at things from a whole other consciousness. This is why Christ is first a consciousness before it's a character in history, apparent. That, this screen of awareness that we might say in a modern context is the lifted up spirit of the Christian teaching, which of course is the Buddha nature, which is the non-dual nature, which is the thrust of the Upanishads and the Hindu scriptures and the Sufism of Islam. All these things overlap. Even the humanistic view, the Gestalt view, the therapeutic view, the recovery view, when they're all pointing to absolute truth rather than my relative truth, an attempt to improve the person, they point to the realigning of the moment and how we experience that and express out of that spontaneously. So, here we're talking about the direct path. We go straight to our true nature. If you don't think about it, what's wrong with right now? Setting aside thinking, feeling, sensing and perceiving, what remains? You go there right now. Without thought, feeling, sense or perception, what remains? And space is, that's to apply a word to what I noticed when I inquired of myself what remained. Nothingness, seemingly as somethingness, but it's not be somethingness. It doesn't belong to anybody. It's simply what is. And then we express ourselves spontaneously out of the isness business. Meditation does become a less useful word. It's helpful for us to communicate ourselves. And we realise that phrase, don't we, that meditation is the word we use at first to describe our natural state. And from that I was able to intuit that, for me, I think the idea of spirituality is, and I would add to Ramana Maharshi, if I could express such a conceit, that spirituality is the word we use at first to describe reality. I think that's true from this way of describing things. That soon the word spirituality isn't essential once we embody our divine nature. We are an expression of that divine spirit. There is an expression of that divine spirit happening to us, without us, in spite of us, and the things that we get up to try and capture that by works and deeds. There's just an expression of the divine through this expression of an apparent human body and mind. And the notion appears out of that in the end of the human body and mind, the Christ consciousness, the divine expression remains, because what is permanent, even in our own limited, contracted experience right now, what endures, awareness or consciousness or beingness or spaciousness or emptiness appearing as apparent somethingness, isn't broken, doesn't seem to end, has always been the space in which the I thought appears, and we invest in that. That's always been that is permanent. It's obvious. It's an enduring. It's infinite, eternal. Eternity isn't time. It's the now. And at the demise of things, and the body and the mind become concepts that we keep creating by identifying with it. At the demise of that, the eternal remains. Meditation is our starting point for that.